Last month, I decided to try this trending dopamine detox thing that everybody I know is talking about. I deleted social media apps. I put my phone in a drawer for the weekend, avoided sugar, caffeine, and basically anything that might give me a hint of pleasure. Day one was brutal. I was bored. I was irritable. I kept opening my empty phone drawer like a weirdo. But by day 3, something shifted. I felt more present, more creative, and weirdly satisfied by simple things like reading a book without checking for notifications every 3 seconds. So, was it worth it? Well, it's complicated, and that's exactly what we're diving into today. The truth about dopamine detoxes, the science behind them, and whether they might actually be worth your time, or is it just another perfectionist trap in wellness packaging? Hey there, welcome to Lead with Soul, the podcast for women leaders who are done with overcomplicating success. I am your host, Meghna. Today we are exploring a wellness trend that has been everywhere lately, the dopamine detox. If you have been on social media at all in the past year, you've probably seen at least one influencer documenting their dopamine detox weekend. Dramatically deleting apps, meditating in empty rooms, drinking plain water, and acting like they have discovered the secret to enlightenment. And listen, I am not immune to a good wellness trend. I have tried my fair share, including this recent dopamine detox experiment. But as with most things that go viral, there is a mix of helpful insights and then complete nonsense wrapped up in this trend. So today, I want to break down what is actually worth considering and what's just not that deep. But first, let's get clear on what a dopamine detox actually is or claims to be, since there's so much confusion around it. In theory, a dopamine detox involves temporarily abstaining from activities that trigger high dopamine responses. Things like social media, video games, sugary foods, goodbye cupcakes, binge watching shows, shopping, and any other form of instant gratification. The goal here is to reset your brain's reward system so you can find more satisfaction in the little things, in simpler pleasures, and improve your focus, your motivation, as well as general well-being. Sounds pretty compelling, right? Who does not want more focus and satisfaction from everyday life? But here's where we need to pause and get real. You cannot actually detox from dopamine. Dopamine's a neurotransmitter in your brain. It's naturally produced in your brain. It is essential for motivation, for learning, just wanting to be alive. And the idea that we should purge dopamine from our system, it's neuroscience nonsense, or at least that's what I believe. So what is actually happening during these so-called detoxes? And more importantly, is there any value in them despite the misleading name? That is what we are exploring today. We're going to talk about the real science behind dopamine and how it actually works. What legitimate fits might come about from these detoxes? Are there any downsides? If so, what? And why is nobody talking about them? How can you create a modified approach that might actually serve you? We'll talk about my personal experience and what I am keeping from the trend. Yes, there were some positives too. Because as it is with a lot of wellness trends, it's not all worthless. There are nuggets of wisdom that are hiding in there if we are willing to sort through the hype. So let's start with the basics. Let's start with understanding what dopamine actually does. Because, this is where most of the confusion begins. Dopamine, as I said earlier, is a neurotransmitter, brain. and it is often called the reward chemical or the pleasure molecule. But that's a massive oversimplification. Dopamine is primarily about anticipation, it's about motivation and the pursuit of rewards. It's not just the pleasure itself. Think of it this way. Dopamine is what makes you want to check your phone every time you hear a notification. The anticipation of what's waiting on that or behind that notification is often more dopamine triggering than the actual content, than the message or whatever we see there. And this distinction matters because dopamine is not the villain that makes us addicted to pleasure. It's a neurochemical. It helps us take action. It helps us learn. More importantly, helps us stay motivated because without it, we would struggle to get out of bed in the morning. And I'll be honest, I noticed this distinction clearly during my own experiment. When I removed social media, I honestly didn't think I would survive. But what I missed wasn't necessarily the content itself. It was that little hit of anticipation when I would reach for my phone, wondering what I'm going to discover. The urge to check. It wasn't about the reward itself, but the possibility of a reward. This is why dopamine is so effectively triggered by variable rewards. Things like social media where you never know what that next scroll is going to bring. Is it going to be something amazing or something awful? That unpredictability is dopamine gold. So then what if we cannot actually detox from dopamine? What potential benefits could still come from these digital breaks and pleasure restrictions, right? One of the first benefits that I could think of would be a pattern interruption. And that's a legitimate value in just simply breaking those habitual patterns of consumption and stimulation that have almost become unconscious. And when you step away from automatic behaviors like checking your phone first thing in the morning or scrolling while you're waiting in line, ever notice that? I caught myself so many times doing it when I'm at Costco waiting to pay. When you stop that, you are actually creating space to actually notice these habits. And we can't change something we're not aware of, right? So this increased awareness is genuinely valuable. During my experiment, I realized I had developed a habit of checking Instagram anytime I felt even slightly bored or uncomfortable. And this wasn't a conscious choice. It was just an automatic response. Just the fact that I noticed this pattern was powerful for me. A second benefit was that of recalibrating sensitivity. See, when you can't actually detox from dopamine itself, there is evidence that temporarily reducing high stimulation activities, it might help recalibrate your sensitivity to the more subtle pleasures. Think of it as your taste buds, right? If you have been eating super spicy foods for weeks, milder flavors sometimes seem bland by comparison. But then if you've taken a break, say, you're getting over a stomach bug or being sick and you've had to take a break from all the spices, you actually start to pick up and appreciate those subtle flavors again. For me, during this experiment, when after 3 days of social media or Netflix, I found that I was genuinely delighted just being able to sit down with a cup of tea and a conversation with my husband. This absence of constant stimulation, it seemed to make more space for appreciating the smaller pleasures that come in life. A third benefit would be cognitive bandwidth, right? Just freeing up mental bandwidth by reducing that constant bombardment from digital distractions and dopamine triggering interruptions. Our brains have finite attention resources. When we're constantly shifting between tasks, devices, and being bombarded by stimuli, we operate at a cognitive deficit. And temporarily reducing these inputs can actually create space for a much deeper focus, for more creativity and mental clarity. This was by far my favorite outcome of the experiment. By day 3, I felt like my brain had fully come online in a way that I had not experienced in a while. I was thinking more clearly, my creative ideas were flowing, and I actually could focus on complex tasks without getting overwhelmed or my attention just running in 60 different directions. I want to also talk about the potential downside of dopamine detoxes that aren't discussed as often. This could be an all or nothing thinking, right? The concept of a detox itself often promotes unhealthy all or nothing patterns. It's either you're in or you're out. And the idea that you're either being good by abstaining completely or bad by indulging can actually reinforce unhealthy relationships with your food or technology or any other sources of enjoyment, because what this is doing is it's suggesting that pleasure itself is somehow problematic, right? Rather than a natural part of the human experience. It's like anything in excess. You don't want to go too much to either side of the spectrum. And I noticed this in myself, and I found myself feeling guilty for cheating by watching a short video someone sent me during this detox phase. And that sense of moral failure over something so minor was a huge red flag for me that this might be a problem. Then there's also the fact that dopamine detoxes can sometimes function as band-aid solutions for deeper issues like work-life boundaries, screen time addiction, or healthy coping mechanisms. So if you find yourself needing regular detoxes from your normal life, it might be worth looking deeper, asking whether the problem is how you're spending your weekends or how you're structuring every life. What I realized after my experiment was that what I really needed was not occasional breaks from technology, but just a better daily structure and boundaries around how much I consumed and how I used digital tools. For some people, especially those that have perfectionist tendencies, dopamine detoxes can become yet another way to strive for an impossible ideal. Not just in work or appearance, but purely how they can live. I've seen people turn these detoxes into elaborate rituals of depriving themselves. No music, no food, no laughter, no conversations that are going to be enjoyable. Almost as if the goal is to strip life down to its most bland essentials. This isn't wellness. This is like you're becoming like almost withdrawing from everything and just it's being repackaged into Instagram age. And then the irony, of course, is that posting about your extreme dopamine detox on social media, now, well, itself is a pursuit of dopamine hits from likes and comments from when you're done with this challenge. So given both the potential benefits and downsides, what might be a more balanced and evidence-based approach would be one that keeps the valuable aspects while also discarding the pseudoscience, right? We want to make sure we are doing intentional reduction versus a complete detox. So instead of thinking about detoxing from dopamine, let's consider temporarily reducing specific high stimulation inputs that may have become excessive in your life. It might look like a weekend without social media apps on your phone and, just being fully present with your children, with your spouse. Maybe setting specific times for checking email instead of throughout the day. A day without sugar, hey, that's not a bad idea. Just reset your taste sensitivity. A morning without immediately checking notifications. Try to create a morning ritual, right? Don't check your phone until 9 a.m. Get your meditation, journaling, all of that done. The key difference is intention and specificity. You're not trying to eliminate all pleasure or dopamine. We're just creating space. We want to temporarily reduce specific inputs that might be overwhelming our system. So personally, I now do a monthly digital reduction weekend. Not because I'm detoxing from dopamine. I love the mental clarity and the presence that comes with it. Instead of focusing exclusively on what you're cutting out, pay attention to what you're actually adding in. So during this, what I'm going to call a reduced stimulation time period, period, right? Let's try to make sure we're intentionally adding time in nature, going out for walks, hikes, any creative pursuits, drawing, art, music, making music, face-to-face conversations with friends, go out on a nature hike with your loved ones, physical activity like that, right? Mindfulness practices, creating time and space for meditation or journaling, deep breathing, yoga. I'm a huge fan of yoga. And what this does is this shifts the focus from depriving yourself to actually exploration and expansion. So you're not just taking away stuff, you're creating space for something. During my experiment, the days when I focused on what I was adding, right? Reading, cooking. By the way, I got into sourdough. I'm in my sourdough era. It felt much more valuable than the days that I focused on what I was avoiding. So addition instead of just focusing on what we're giving away. And perhaps the most valuable aspect of any detox is increased awareness of your habits, of your patterns, be it focused around pleasure, around stimulation. And as you reduce certain inputs, make sure you practice noticing when do you reach for your phone automatically? What emotions are triggering the desire for distraction? Are we running away from stuff, right? Are we trying to not deal with stuff? How does your energy, your focus, and your mood shift? When do you see those simpler pleasures becoming more noticeable? The goal isn't to judge these patterns, far from it, but to become more conscious of them. Because awareness is the first step towards intentional change. So what I do now is I keep a small notebook where I jot down my observations about my relationship with technology, be it my iPad, my phone, my computer, and not to criticize myself, but so I can understand my patterns. Was it because I was feeling overwhelmed, or was it an uncomfortable conversation that I didn't want to have? Those are the things that I try to be more aware of. So the bottom line is a dopamine detox worth it, right? My nuanced answer is yes, as long as we are using it as a practice of temporarily reducing those overwhelming inputs while we are increasing awareness. This is when it becomes genuinely valuable. The key is to approach it with flexibility. Don't beat yourself up about it. Be compassionate towards yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't treat it as one more thing that we have to be a perfectionist about. It's more of a recalibration, more of a checking in with my relationship to what it is that I need to add. So my recommendation to you would be, if you're curious about this practice, identify one source of high stimulation that may have become excessive in your life. Choose a time frame. Give yourself 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever works for you, to decrease it or maybe eliminate it. Plan what you're going to add to this time instead of what you're going to take away. Notice what comes up when you've actually created this space. And then consider what elements you might want to incorporate into your regular routine. See, the point is, it's not about purging pleasure from your life. Far from it. It is about creating space to discover what is it that's truly nourishing you beneath all that noise. Let's continue this conversation on Instagram. Come find me at Meghna Dassani. I want to continue this conversation about intentionally balancing stimulation and presence in our busy lives. Remember, the goal isn't a perfect detox. It is a more intentional relationship with the things that bring you more joy and energy.